Hi, friends. Welcome to Stop 6, the medical exam. The doctors at Ellis Island developed a system to identify immigrants who needed medical attention. The first test was the 6-second physical. A uniformed doctor looked for any signs of illness or contagious diseases. The doctor noted whether the immigrants limped or were short of breath, if their eyes were red, if they acted disturbed or seemed otherwise abnormal. If someone was considered a risk to the public health, his or her clothes were marked by a piece of chalk with an identifying letter. An X denoted insanity. A P denoted pulmonary or lung problems. Immigrants who were marked were taken out of the line and kept for further examination. Immigrants who passed the 6-second exam continued through the maze of metal rails toward the far end of the hall for the legal inspection. So in 6 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a doctor determined whether you could move forward or not. If you are marked with something, insanity would be considered that you just were not in a mental good place. You maybe were so stressed out, you were kind of losing it, causing a little bit of a temper tantrum. Lung issues would be your breathing. So you might have been breathing very shallow or slow or breathing very fast if you were nervous. We're going to check out some pictures. So an inspection at Ellis Island. So you can see they're right in line and the doctor would just look really quick. Immigrants going through the medical exam. Uniformed officials perform medical inspections. And this chart I find extremely interesting. The chalk symbols used at Ellis Island and what each symbol meant. So everyone who went through the medical exam, if they had something, they were marked with a certain letter. So as we said, P would be for lungs, like pulmonary. H could be for the heart. FT for feet. So this was kind of a quick little chart that you were marked with, so an inspector could look and say, okay, this is their problem or this is their problem. We're going to listen to someone share. Rachel was a 10-year-old who came to America from Palestine, and she arrived in 1922. She describes going through the medical inspection. She also explains how her mother, who was not used to walking in high heels, wore them during the medical inspection and was almost detained because of how she walked. So doctors, if you hesitated in your question, they might think that you might not have enough smarts about you. If you weeble wobbled a little bit because you were wearing high heels, they would consider there could be something wrong. They didn't necessarily look at the whole picture. They just took you for what you were acting like or showing right then and there. So let's listen.
Trachoma was prevalent at the time. Everybody was tested, the eyes with eye drops, and again. Oh, I passed through that. Then they tested the ears. They took you from one little cubby hole to another, and there was a physician in each area examining you. We had a very, very peculiar experience. When we were in Le Havre, my older sister decided to buy my mother a nice pair of shoes. So they had low heels. My mother never was accustomed to heels. We wore sandals. So she tied it up. And that was a hindrance to us because they took her and they started to look at her feet and tested. They were going to send us back because they thought something was wrong with her. She was going to fall prey to the city, to the government. Until they were convinced that she can walk because she had to take her shoes off when she walked. They couldn't understand why. We had so many experiences.
So Rachel laughs about it now, but I can imagine going through the inspection and being so scared and worried. Years later, she can giggle about it and say, like, they were going to not pass us because my mom didn't know how to walk in high heels. And kind of think about a baby. When they learn to walk, they walk a little silly, right? They kind of walk like Frankenstein. Same thing goes for here. Some people might have just, their feet could have hurt from being in shoes that were too small. And that's what could have stopped them. So we're going to go back to see the Did You Know? Medical detainees were sent to Ellis Island Hospital. The Immigrant Act of 1891 forbade anyone with a dangerous contagious disease from entering the country, which means it refused, like no one could enter if they had a disease. This was a way to prevent epidemics in the American population. If any diseases were found, the immigrant was immediately sent to quarantine or back to his or her country. Medical detainees were sent to Ellis Island Hospital. The average stay was about 2 weeks. So a lot of times about 2 weeks is what quarantine protocols were. So if you stayed and recovered within 2 weeks and didn't show any more signs, you were no longer contagious, meaning you couldn't spread it to someone else. And they did this because they didn't want new diseases to take over America and the cities that were healthy at that point. 120,000 people with diseases or disabilities were sent back. About 1/10 of immigrants were marked for further medical inspection. Approximately 10% of that group was eventually denied entry into America. That means about 120,000 people were sent back home, either for incurable diseases or for disabilities. So when you think about millions and millions and millions of people came through Ellis Island, if only 120,000 people were sent back, not that many people were sent back. A fun fact is I actually had a great aunt that was sent back because she had a contagious eye disease, and they did not allow her into the country. So this was a little bit about the medical inspection. Again, there was a lot of factors involved. Someone might not have understood what the doctor was asking them. They might have judged it just by the person being overtired or exhausted or stressed out. So definitely a scary process. But when we think about the whole group of people who made it, not as many people got sent back as you might think. Well, I can't wait to go on to our next stop. I hope you learned some fun things about the medical exam, and we will see you again on stop 7.